So my name is Diana Rodriguez. I'm one of the senior admissions counselors for the Rick School of Applied Life Sciences. And today I'm moderating our summer speaker series. So I'm very happy to introduce one of our alumni from MBS class of 2015, Wendy Chen. So Wendy Chen is a Senior Manager for Strategic Planning and Operations at Amgen. So we are very happy to have her here today and learn a little bit more about her role and her experience at KGI and just overall within her journey at Amgen. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and take it over to Wendy.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Chen, and I guess I'll introduce myself. So I am KGI, a class of 2015, and currently I'm at Amgen, external supply under Portfolio Strategy and Management Group. So my group, we support contract manufacturing, raw material, device, and secondary packaging on site selection, network strategy, risk management type of activities. I know there are a lot of big words over there. So if anyone have any question regarding, the detail of what we do here at this group, I can provide a little more detail there. And so I think just, back up a little bit. I have biochemistry, cell biology undergrad from UC San Diego. And I think with a lot of KGI students, a similar experience that I had a science background and I work in lab when I first graduated from UC San Diego. And I like the science, I love the industry, but I didn't see myself stay in lab forever. So at the time I was trying to, get out of lab. And then at that time, I didn't know about KGI. So it was, my bad. I didn't know about KGI at the time. So I did my mini rotation, in my own career when I first joined the workforce. So I went to sales and marketing in the industry. So more at the raw material space, provide cell culture media to, biotech company, pharmaceutical companies. And eventually I work with a COO very closely in one of my job. And that's how I found out about operations more. And that made me want to learn more about the industry. And I found KGI around that time. And during KGI, and, I'm very glad that I made the choice. And I was able to complete the MBS program and actually got an internship with Amgen, got hired back to Amgen. And ever since I'm here, I think it's 8 years now, and still have a lot of fun here at Amgen. So are we waiting for Ed or?
It was my understanding that you were going to provide us with more of an overview of your position and your experience at KGI.
Oh, okay. So so I gave you my kind of like the background of what I do. So I guess the favorite part of my job is that I get to see a lot of new technology in the company because we do work with external manufacturers. So a lot of times when Amgen have a new molecule that comes to us, that's probably because Amgen either doesn't fit the capability that Amgen has or capacity. So we would decide to outsource. So our group would be looking at all the requirement and criterias and timeline, capacity, and go through the site selection process to make sure that we find the best suitable contract manufacturing organizations, or we call CMOs, to support us with our programs. I get to see many different CMOs in different countries. So that's a fun part of my job. I guess we work with a lot of people in different culture. We have CMOs in Japan, Italy, Switzerland, right? US, So get to work with a lot of different people. So I think that's the fun part of it. We used to be able to travel a lot more, and now because the pandemic, we stopped traveling as much. But we do still travel here and there. Um, but right now, I think everyone can get the job done virtually. So we've been doing a lot of virtual meetings. We also have this technology called HoloLens. It's a virtual reality device that people can wear it when they go on site visit. And if you're on, if you're in the office or somewhere else, you can get to see the things that even though you're not on site. So that's like the cool thing that we get to see as well. And I guess the most challenging part of the job is that I wouldn't say it's the most challenging, but definitely the time zone difference, as you know. We work with Asia, so that will be late our time, and Europe will be early our time. So really being flexible about your time and how you do your job, it's critical, right? Because how do you plan your day depending on who you work with and what's your projects. And I think the challenge will be competing priorities, right? We always have competing priorities, I think, in all companies too. So I think it's very important to understand how to reprioritize, how to pivot when needed, and really be very adaptive to the situation. And I think if you're in this position, then you'll be fine. Okay. So that's, I provided the kind of the favorite part and the challenging as well. And I guess I can provide some of the how I like about working at Amgen. So I think for the career-wise, there's a lot of learning potential in the company. I think there are a lot of KJ alums at Amgen, and they probably say the same thing too. Amgen is such a big company. If you are interested in more commercial side, in the commercial side, there are tons of things that you can learn and grow. I'm in operations, and I am not planning to go commercial. I want to stay in operations, but within operations, it's very huge, right? There is manufacturing, there is process development, there is, the strategy involved as well. So the group I'm in currently, even though it's under manufacturing, but my group works on a lot of strategy things. And before strategy, I was actually a site manager for contract manufacturing organization. So I actually managed contract sites up to 8 or 9 sites at once. And so having that background, day-to-day operations type of experience helped me do a better job in terms of forming on a strategy, right? Because you know what the day-to-day is like, and now I can look at a bigger picture of the strategy. So definitely a lot of learning potential, and that's why I'm still here. And there's never a dull moment. I'm having fun every moment. Working with different culture, different backgrounds of people. And the company is really doing a good job listening to staff's needs, the well-being, right? During the pandemic, I think a lot of people are under a lot of stress because the family, the work. And I think Amgen does a really good job making sure that staff are being taken care of. There are different benefits that we can utilize. And, we try to do no meeting Friday afternoon, have some buffer within the meeting time so people have some time to at least stretch a little bit and make sure that we have a good ergonomic setup at home and things like that. So I think company is taking care of the employees pretty well. Okay, and I think I see Ed here. Hi,
yeah,
Ed.
Hi, Wendy. I'm finally on. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties on Zoom. I figured it out. But welcome. Did anyone introduce you formally, or
Yes, and I actually went through kind of my background and my role and what I like about the company I'm working with, Amgen.
So that's good. Somebody pinch it for me. I appreciate that. Yeah, I can continue. I don't know if they asked you a question or if you're just giving your background now. That's fine.
I kind of just
Yeah.
go with it.
Sure. Because I was looking at your background on LinkedIn, I was interested in some of the earlier work you had done. You were a lab assistant, and then you went into research assistant, hologistic. How do you pronounce that?
Hologic, yeah.
Hologic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no S in there. Hologic. And then sales and marketing. So I saw some marketing in there as well, which is interesting.
Yep.
And then at some point you decided to go, you decided to change and maybe go back to grad school. From what I can tell, that was wedged in there. And then now you've been at Amgen for a while. So I'm wondering what prompted you to, make that change, and at what point?
Yeah, I touched on a little bit earlier, but I mentioned that I had science degree, and I think a lot of KGI students have science background in undergrad, and same as I. And I work in lab, Hologic. They do diagnostic. That they are a diagnostic company, and I believe they support TMP for KGI as well. And I love the science. I didn't see myself stay in labs forever. And at the time, I didn't know about KGI. So at the time, I just want to get to the business side of the life science industry. So I didn't really know anything about project management. I didn't know anything about operations. At the time, I only thought about sales and marketing when I think about business. And so I tried really hard to find a sales and marketing job, and that's how I made that switch initially. And afterwards, I was able to work with a COO very closely in Irvine Scientific, which they are a cell culture media company, provides material to biotech company, pharmaceutical company. At the time, even though I was doing sales and marketing, I worked very, very closely with operations. And that's how I learned about operations and like project management, production planning, supply chain. And I want to learn more about the industry at the time. And so I started doing research and found KGI at the time. And finally, I joined KGI and got my internship with the Amgen in supply chain, and got hired back in supply chain. But after joining Amgen after 2 years in supply chain, I made the switch to contract manufacturing because I still want to kind of utilize my science background a little bit and also bridge that science and business. And contract manufacturing group is a great place to really have that two skills, right? Because you are working on a lot of manufacturing stuff, process development things, with the CMOs, but you also have to make sure that you have that supplier management skill, right? That soft skill, and the business acumen, like budgeting, right? Financial and strategy type of thing. So I really enjoy that work, and I'm still within that group in external supply doing more strategy work. And so that's how I make the switch.
So you mentioned Amgen. I think you said internship at Amgen.
Yes.
Was that? So you were a KGI. You had an internship at Amgen during your summer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did you also have any work on a TMP?
Yes.
At KGI.
I had two
master's project.
Mm-hmm. I had 2 TMPs when I was at KGI. The first one was with BioMarin, and I think both of them were with BioMarin, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so never, not a TMP at Amgen. I'm just
not a TMP at Amgen.
Here yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, another good company, BioMarin, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you describe your? I mean, you just mentioned a couple of things in operations. You mentioned elements of operations. Supply chain. I heard you mention that, project management. I like to talk about these things in my classes too. The idea of what is operations. I think some people have a misunderstanding of that, or perhaps no understanding if they're just coming into the program, and you want to have a career in operations. I mean, what in your mind, at least in biotech, is operations? If you could elaborate more on that.
Right. I would say operation is like the engine of the company, right? So you have sales and marketing, you have commercial to do all the, more customer facing and, forecasting, strategy, which market we're going. Operations is that engine to make things happen, right? So you will have a forecast, but without manufacturing, without supply chain, without all these process development work, you will not have product to go to the patients, right? So operation is really that engine to make things happen.
Right.
We're kind of at the background, right? Sometimes we're not at the front end, talking about all the sales number, but we are very important and we cut costs, right?
Yeah,
We try our way to make
it's not always the glamorous area. It may not be customer facing either, right? So,
right.
and in my mind, they don't get enough credit. I always think of it as sort of, where the value is added to the company. I mean, it's where they make the products and where you ship the products and the raw materials come in and so forth. And without that, you get nothing to create revenue. So, kind of my view of it anyway. Maybe I'm biased because I'm an operations person.
Yeah, that's always, whenever people ask me what's operation, I always explain, describe as the engine, right? Without the engine, you're not able to move forward and you will not have a product from point A to point B. And that operations it's a very big word, right? It includes so many different aspects. There is process development. I think a lot of students at KGI thinks process development equals operations, right? At least that's how I understood it when I was at KGI. But operations is way more than process development, right?
Yeah.
There's process development. There is manufacturing aspect. There is supply chain, right? And there's even like strategy involved, right? So there's so many different things, and we all have to work together, because just with the process development alone, we're not going to make too far, right? So in the contract manufacturing space that I work with, we work with core team like supply chain, quality, PD, process development, and us, right? We are more like the virtual site head, almost virtual plant manager, that we make sure that the performance of the CMO is right, and they can deliver the products that we ask them to do, right? So that's very key. You always have to be cross-functional. Yeah.
Well, I noticed you've been at Amgen it's like 8 years now, I guess, total. So there's something about it that you obviously you like, and you like the company. I'm wondering if there's anything in terms of the culture that is that's keeping you there, that you enjoy. Obviously, it's a hot job market now, so there are opportunities out there. So I'm wondering is there a culture that you like at Amgen, or anything about your job that you like that keeps you there?
Right. So Amgen, I think, it's a pretty big company, and I touch on a little bit about the learning potential. Career-wise, there's many places to learn, right? Even just within my external supply, this big group, there's so many places that I'm still want to learn, right? I'm focusing on contract manufacturing, but hey, there's raw material space, there's a device, right? Secondary packaging space that we can learn. And the company has early pipeline, there's late stage molecule, there's pretty established molecule that's already in the market too. So depending on what program that you work with, you have different experience, right? Because the early program, they might not have that many resources, and they work like a startup within a big company, right? And when you have a more established program, they work on different things. So learning potential is definitely there. And I think the career development discussion is it's very important. I think that happens every year with all staff and managers to make sure, hey, what's the next 5 years that you want to do? How do we help you to go to the area that you want to be, right? So and there's rotational program within the company. There is short-term assignments within the company. You can allocate 10%, 20% to in process development to learn something that it's not in your day-to-day job. So I think company is trying to provide as much as learning opportunity as possible for staff to help them grow in general. And the culture-wise, I think work-life balance is something that people talk about. I would say work-life balance it goes up and down. I would say overall, yes, there's work-life balance, but it really depends on, sometimes you just have so much going on. You might have, heavy workload in certain time, but it's not always heavy workload, right? There's goes up and down, I think, with everything, right? Life, everything too. The company really listen to staff's need and try to make sure that staff have healthy well-being, like physically and mentally, right? Provide a lot of different resources. So at least I know during the crazy pandemic that we're all in, that we can make sure that we feel good about who we are, what we do, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I mean, we've all heard that phrase, right? Work-life balance quite a bit over the last several years. And I think some companies, just talk the talk and don't walk the walk. So, I mean, that's a hard thing to sometimes pull off because there's a lot of people that, most of us work more than 40 hours a week. So we're pushed to do more with less now, right? From a labor standpoint. So
yeah, and I do say that sometimes I do work for more than 40 hours, but sometimes I don't, right? So I think it really depends on, the month, the week, the deadline, but it's not always more than 40 hours a week.
I mean, in production jobs and operations that I've worked, I mean, usually at the end of the month is when if there's some shipments that have to go out or something that has to get accomplished, there's always that time crunch at the end, last few days, to make shipments, make deliveries. Do you come under that pressure at all end of the month, or is that
not necessarily end of month, but when we meet
end of quarter or anything,
right? Or if there is critical investigation going on, right? So if there's anything happen in the production and we have to do root cause, people probably heard about root cause analysis, right? Investigation. We have to make sure that we find the root cause before we move on and release the product to the next stage. Otherwise, the product is going to be stuck there, and that's going to impact the supply. And we don't want to stock out the market, right? And I think Amgen is one of the 2 companies in the industry, I believe, still not stock out, haven't had the drug shortage yet, knock on the wood. But I think we're very proud of that because we do deliver every patient every time. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I want to go back to a point I thought of earlier. You're a manager at Amgen, so I'm assuming you have a staff that reports to you, or somebody. You're not just you've got leadership responsibilities. So you must have. Do you have direct report staff?
Yes, I do have staff report to me.
And how many do you have in that?
I have 5 reporting to me.
Do you? I mean, as a manager, do you find that challenging, or one of the is that the most favorite part of your job, or least favorite part of your job, managing people in terms of staff?
I think the fun part is I love the coaching, develop people aspect. Is how do I help my staff to get to where he or she wants to be, right? Mm-hmm. Or want to grow to. And we always ask question, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? I still ask myself that question too. Right. So we always have that conversation, and not just, I love that aspect of, talking to staff, not just about work, but about their personal life too, right? So, and as you know, right now it's all virtual. So it's a little difficult to have that hallway conversation. So we make sure that we all have that connection still in the virtual setting. So I really enjoy sharing those connections with my staff and help them grow in terms of their career. And the challenging aspect is my staff that I manage, I would say range in different generations, right? We have staff that's probably close to retired, right? Stage, and we have staff that just joined the workforce. So as you can probably imagine, the mindset is very different. And so, I think that's the fun part, and also the challenging part as well, is how do we keep staff motivated and still having fun at work, love doing their job, love coming to the work, and still be proud of what they do, right? So I think there's a lot of balancing that need to be done there, is try to balance what they like and how we can help them grow and how we can help them stretch, right? And really find their potential.
Right. Very good. So, I mean, I'm assuming you consider yourself an effective manager, effective leader. So there must be something you picked up over the years and how to do that. Is it something you picked up at grad school or undergrad, or just in life in general, other jobs you've had?
I think all.
Mm.
I think at KGI, having lots of projects, working with cross-functional teams really helped kind of develop that leadership skill, right? And I think everyone can learn that in, you don't have to be a manager to learn how to lead. You can be part of the team and still learn that leadership from, your teammate or others. And I think what I learned through, KGI projects, classes, and my experience at different companies and Amgen is listen, right? Really try to listen to really understand people's perspective before you talk or I talk. I always try to listen before I talk and try to understand people's perspective instead of pointing finger right away, right? And empathy. I think empathy is probably a hot topic one right now. Empathy is how can people relate to you, right? If you can, I think people find it helpful, or not really helpful, is they appreciate if you can have some sort of empathy. And I think that make staff more motivated in general to do the work.
Yeah, I agree. There's an adage I like to think about, listening to respond versus listening to understand, right? Some people just they're thinking right away. I'm listening, I'm kind of hearing what you're saying, but my thoughts are responding to what you're saying versus listening to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I heard you say that exactly the same thing. You're listening to understand before you respond, not just thinking ahead to the response you're going to give, but really
Right.
listening to what they're saying.
And I think I used to talk, sometimes I try to talk over someone. I think when I was, earlier in my career, and I learned that it was not effective at all, right? Because I tried to finish someone else's sentence, but that was not someone else trying to say. So I learned to just be patient, listen and digest a little bit, then you can respond.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's a good sign of a good manager. And I like to think also, leading by example. I always think of that as a key part of being any kind of leader or manager in the workplace, and lead by example if you can,
Right.
do the right things. And I hope industry now is also taking a view that if you're going to manage something, you should have done the work yourself before, right? So you're leading or managing a department that you fully understand, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think my experience or the colleague that I work with, I think they all have the experience. And we see that's more effective than you just assign someone to manage a complete different group and have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, usually that's not that effective.
Right. And I've seen that with promotions. Sometimes you put somebody in there as a promotion, it's good for them and certainly from a monetary standpoint, but they might not have ever done the job before. And so there's always that learning curve in the beginning that happens that
for sure.
Right, which may not ever actually be as effective as putting someone who actually knows the job in there. So the other thing is, if you could just tell me, like, you're at Amgen, life in a day of Wendy. What's a typical day like? I mean, students often ask that question too. They want to know, okay, am I at the computer all day? Am I out on the floor? Am I at the workplace? In the factory, etc.
Right. I would say none of the day will be the same. Yes, I will have my laptop with me almost all the time, but Right now we still have this hybrid virtual versus in-person meeting. Amgen start opening up, so we can actually go back to work. However, it's still pretty light. The office still not that many people. I think most of the people still doing virtually. Just, we found that we can still work and be pretty effective virtually. We do have maybe once a week, there's an optional day that we can go back to have face-to-face meetings, workshop that will probably be more effective than, doing virtually. So my day in life, I think really depends on the weeks, right? So depending on my priority of the week, I'll structure my day different. And I do have 2 kids. So in the morning, I would need to send them to daycare first. And then after I'm back, I'll open my laptop and look at my calendar to see if I have any meetings. And usually I do. And especially we work with different time zone, different offices, different locations. A lot of times I even have meetings at 7 a.m. And as late as, sometime if we work with Asia, that will be past 5 p.m. But we're pretty flexible in terms of how we work. We don't have a standard 8 to 5 time. As long as you finish your work, no one's going to care about when you work, right? Like 8 to 5 or 9 to 6. You don't have to sit there the whole time, right? It's really, if you finish your job, you do a good job, that's fine. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time in the meetings, honestly, a lot of meetings to talk about a lot of alignment, strategy type of work, or understand the program needs, because we do a lot of site selection type of activity and network strategy. So we work with internal team to make sure that we understand the needs so we can better serve them, right? They are our customers, and we will take that all the information and form cross-functional team to help us do all these requests. So we do have a lot of different new work requests. Could be selecting a new site to support drug substance manufacturing, drug product, packaging. Could be business case to support one of the development with external parties. So you name it. I would say we range from maybe up to 80 requests all time. Well, not a day, but in a month, we probably will have like around 80 requests on different areas. Could be site selection, could be, a special assessments, or sometimes business development related due diligence, right? So when business development team has a potential deal, they come to us and we will need to do assessment if there's anything involved with contract manufacturing organizations. So I would say every day is kind of different, but we do work on different requests.
Okay, nice.
And I see there is a question.
All right, who has? Okay, Beatrice, who initiates the requests? How are they generated?
So good question. So anyone could initiate the request. Usually is, I don't know if you guys heard about global operations lead. So usually they are the ones that manage program. For example, Amgen product, Repatha, Epogen, they all have a global operations lead that lead a program for the operations team. So they are in charge of the product strategy, go to the different market. So they're the lead for the program. So if they have any new requests that involve our team, they'll send a request. And how do they generate the request? We actually created a process to have a process in place. So there is a specific form that will need to fill it out. Sometimes they will need to provide scope of work, kind of in the scope of work, you'll have detailed information like the product, the timeline, what they're asking, right? So are they asking to select a new site to support the program, or they're just trying to request for a cost analysis, right? So there are different type of requests that they can do. So we do have a form for them to fill it out. And so we can evaluate and start doing the assessment based on the request form.
Okay, thank you. Good. Thanks for clarifying. If you have any more questions, folks, you can type them into the chat session or wait till later. I just want a couple more questions to ask Wendy. Then at the end, we've got a Q&A the last 10 minutes, so that works better. But thanks for that. Was, I thought, timely to kind of hit that as we're talking about it, that same question on that same topic. I did have a question, going back just for a second to thinking about KGI again. We talk about networking and so forth being important, and we try to develop the focus on that, or the skills for that at KGI. And I'm wondering if you think that was, did you pick that up at all at KGI, or was it something that you didn't, you had before that or after that, networking skills?
I think networking skill is something that I'm still trying to perfect it, right? And I think KGI did a really good job emphasizing the importance of networking. I would say I did a little bit of networking before KGI, but I think KGI was when I started really doing the networking, like really reaching out to people to understand like the difference in different area, try to reach out to alums, right? And during my internship at Amgen, I tried to reach out as many people as possible during my internship in different area, not just in operations, in commercial, in like quality, and different groups, trying to understand what they do, because I mean, such a big company, and people do different things. So I would say networking, even now, if you ask anyone at Amgen, they will still tell you it's very important. And I think that's how I got my job actually in contract manufacturing. Was I had no idea what contract manufacturing group did. So when I was looking for opportunity, when I was still in supply chain, I just, reach out to people. And I went to Amgen career site first and look at all the job description. And I found the job description of the contract manufacturing manager interesting. And so I reached out to the team and say, hey, can I learn about the contract manufacturing group? Tell me the good thing and tell me the bad things too. I don't want to just hear about the good things, right? I also want to learn about the bad things. So they told me everything that they know, their experience, and they didn't scare me away. So I still apply eventually when the opportunity came up, and I got it because they already know, hey, Wendy, I spoke to this person and she's interested, right? And I didn't really have that direct experience at the time, but I got the opportunity, right? And I do have the transferable skill and willing to learn. So I think that's the critical part is, do the networking and really tell people what you can offer, right? You might not have all the experience that they want, but are you coachable, right? Are you able to learn? And I think that's the traits that when we try to hire new people, that's what we're looking for.
Open-minded, willing to learn, cooperative.
Yes.
Yeah, eager. I think those are good words to people. Energetic. I mean, it's difficult today because we're on Zoom a lot. I didn't realize that you were on Zoom entirely as well still. Obviously, some people are back at the plant and at the physical location where they have to be there, lab work and production and so forth. So it sounds like you're going to go back to on-site at some point soon, including all of your staff, I'm guessing, as well.
Right. We do have people over the place. We have people in Europe. We have people in East Coast. So we are a virtual site.
Is your staff scattered then as well, or just, you mentioned 5 people that work for you? Are they also scattered? Or they are local?
Scattered.
They are. Okay.
So we have Europe, we have East Coast, and we have Thousand Oaks as well. Most of the people are in Thousand Oaks, but it's, we mainly work with Ireland and Thousand Oaks.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. If you could, just a couple last questions here. I want to save time for Q&A. If you could give me a sense whether or not, has your career evolved or turned out the way you thought it would? Are you surprised by where you are, what you're doing when, looking back, and maybe as an undergrad, from that point going forward, what have you learned? Did you plan on this particular career track or not?
No, I did not plan to be at Amgen at all. When I was an undergrad, I thought I would be some sort of healthcare professional. I think a lot of KGI folks were probably like that. um, I
Yeah,
was thinking about pharmacists. I was thinking about doctor, vets.
interesting.
What you can think about. Um, and after I graduate, when I was senior, I was like, oh, like there are other things that you can do. And that's why I found, the internship when I was in undergrad, to kind of know the things other than healthcare. Um, and I think KGI gave me even more exposure to the companies,
Mhm.
in the industry and the different things that you can do, right? There's like regulatory aspects that you can go with, quality operations,
Yeah.
consulting, right? Like I didn't know about consulting before either. Um, and I think KGI is a good place to give student the exposure and try to learn what fits your lifestyle too, because consulting doesn't fit everyone's lifestyle, right? I thought about consulting, but I don't think that fits my lifestyle.
Yeah. A lot of
That
travel.
requires a lot of traveling, right? My job in contract manufacturing previously requires a lot of traveling too, but definitely not consulting type of traveling. Um,
Right.
and I think where I am in my career, I think I think for me there is a period of time I'm just super ambitious. I want to like push, push, push. I want to go, go, go. And at some point it's like, okay, maybe I can slow down a little bit right now because I have other things to focus on in life, right? So I do have two young kids right now.
Mhm.
One is 3 years old and one is 9 months old. So um, I still want to push, push, push and go to the next level. But sometimes, you have to kind of weigh in, what's the best.
Sure.
But I think I'll still get to where I want to be. Maybe not now, but maybe in 2 years or 3 years. Right. So I think just kind of constantly ask yourself, where do you want to be? Are you okay to get it later or you need to get it now? Yeah.
Well, thanks for clarifying. I looked at your background. I noticed you had the BS in biochemistry and cell biology. So I guess it makes sense that you were thinking of, the medical career. You mentioned veterinary school, med school, dental school, all those things that kind of go along with that background. Yeah, we get some people with some very similar backgrounds at KGI. So if you could, just one last question here, if you could give anybody advice, potential candidates advice, applying to grad school or not, and applying to grad school like KGI, what would you provide them? Any advice going in or anything further you'd like to provide?
Advice for the student that's maybe thinking about grad school.
The applicant, first of all, should they apply for grad school? Maybe it's KGI. And second of all, when they're in grad school, what should they focus on, take advantage of, pay attention to?
Right. I think when looking for grad school, really try to look for like, what are you looking for in the grad school, right? When I was trying to look for grad school, I was thinking about KGI or MBA. I didn't go for MBA. I went for KGI because I do want to stay in the the industry, the life science industry. And KGI provided kind of like the MBA level courses, right? And we are competing. I think we still do competing with MBA in the internship, right? And when I was doing internship, my intern class were all MBAs, and we're from MBS. I mean, we're at the same level, right? No difference. So really try to look for, is this not just apply for any grad school just to get into a grad school. I think really to get your time and your investment worth, right? You're investing your time and money. You want to make sure that you get things in return, right? I heard about MBA, sometimes you don't get the return you need, but I think for KGI so far, the people that I work with, people say good things about it. And
Right.
they had great experience and they got they were able to get good job after graduation. So I would say if to any student, if you are thinking about applying to KGI, don't think about it. I mean, it's just go for it. You don't have to wait for next year or anything. If you're thinking about it, just get the package and everything ready and go for it, right? You don't have to wait for a year or two. And that was me. I was thinking, should I apply? I was pretty late to apply, and I was thinking if I should wait a little bit. But the alum, that KGI alum I talked to, recommend me just to encourage me to just apply, don't wait. And I'm very glad that he made the suggestion.
Oh, good to hear. Good to
Yeah.
hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's move over now. We're running out of time. Move over to some questions. And there's one in the chat room we'll talk about.
Mhm.
If anybody else has questions, they can type them in there. I'll ask for a hand. Anybody wants to raise their hand and ask the question verbally, that'll be next. But Lily had a question on the chat room. Wendy, can you see the chat room there?
Yes, I can.
So she has quite a few, actually, all in one message here. The first one's, may I ask what a CMO stands for? How did Amgen make you feel welcomed, et cetera?
Okay.
Maybe you can just address a few of those in turn here.
Okay, I can talk it through. So CMO stands for Contract Manufacturing Organizations. So pretty much they are companies that make products for Amgen or other companies. If companies doesn't have any capacity or capability, then we go pretty much outsource the manufacturing to suppliers.
So they are suppliers that have take it to the next level, right? They can actually do the entire product if you want them to.
Yes.
In some cases.
And Amgen, okay, so when I was an Amgen intern, I think because that was pre-pandemic years ago, right? We had a lot of events on sites. They made us feel very welcome. They have a lot of events during summer. They have speaker series as well. Like CEO, VPs, they all will talk about their career, how they get there, and things like that, and a lot of events to make sure that interns can have fun still. And I would say you don't need to worry about being left out at Amgen. They treat intern very well, and I always tell interns that coming in the summer saying you have the golden ticket, use it. Once you are full time, it's a little different, but intern, you have the golden ticket. They treat intern very, very well. And make good impression. I would say be professional. Is key, right? And set up as many chats as you want with the people that you want to talk to. Just be professional, polite, and be curious, willing to learn. I think you'll be fine as an intern. Anything I wish I knew before I started my internship when I got Amgen? I think before my internship, I actually reached out to my hiring manager to see if anything I can read before my internship to get better prepared. So I think that's a good way. If you get an internship anywhere else, Amgen or somewhere, just reach out to the hiring manager, say, hey, how can I be more prepared before my internship? Either it could be reading about supply chain or reading about, which market, depending on your project, right? And I think that can actually show that you're very proactive and want to do well as well. Okay. The transition from intern to staff, to transition to intern to staff is pretty smooth, I would say. So once you get hired back, the first day you already have your laptop and everything. You will do the same as the intern, that you start talking to people, learning the culture, meeting people. Just, the golden ticket is you still have that golden ticket, but not as golden, I would say. People, when they see you as a full-time, they still want to help you. But I would say intern, when you're intern, that everyone just so willing to help. They know that intern is still learning, want to understand, the industry, the work. So I wouldn't say it's a big difference there in terms of the transition. any team bonding building exercise. So a lot of times that we do offsites, right? We might go to dinner, or we might go to some scavenger hunt in the company, or depending on which group that you work with, sometimes you'll have volunteering activities, right? To go to the beach and or go to the food bank. So every group has different team building activities that they do. So they're a lot. Okay. And I think there's a last one, define success in my work. So I think success in my work is, how do you make sure that you help your group and your company achieve the goal, right? A lot of times as an individual contributor, you are, even though you're a working project individually, but you're actually contributing to something bigger, right? And for me, the program that I manage, and I see eventually it goes to patient, and we see all the patient stories. And I think we are very proud of that. And I think that's a success, right? So that's my short answer.
Good. No, good. Thank you. Just enough time, Wendy, for two more questions. One, they're both with hands up here. Beatrice first, and then Emmanuel.
Okay.
Beatrice, your question, please.
Thanks, Wendy. I was curious more about your experience at KGI. I know you touched about it briefly with respect to the internship and sort of what to expect when applying. But what about like the organizations that you were part of? And then to add to that, what professional organizations would you recommend to either current students or like after graduation?
Okay. So
to help navigate some of this.
Yeah. So the first part, can you clarify the first question?
Yeah, just can you speak more about your experience? Like, did you have a particular concentration, for instance?
So when I first joined KGI, I think my concentration was in the business of the bioscience. I think name probably changed now, but it was the business. But I did take bioprocessing related classes as well to understand more of the technical aspect of the kind of like the bioprocessing. But keep in mind, the industry is more than bioprocessing, right? So there's like the small molecule that Amgen is like working on too, and I think a lot of companies like Merck, Pfizer, they have a lot of small molecule synthetics drugs as well. But I think yeah. So to answer your question, business was my concentration, and I did take a bioprocessing related classes to help me further understand the technical aspect of it. And your second one was talking about the professional organization. So I was part of the PDA when I was in KGI. I was leading, I don't remember which year, but I was actually the vice president, and then I became a president. So we brought in a lot of different speakers. We did site tours to help students understand the industry better. Yeah.
What does the acronym stand for? Sorry.
The PDA, I think, is Parental Drug Association. Okay,
Parental?
I think, yeah.
Parental drug. Okay.
Parental, yeah. KGI, I think it's still very active. There's a student chapter. So that's a student chapter. And once you graduate, you can actually join the young professional chapter or membership. And Amgen is pretty big at that too. And I think a lot of companies are very involved in that too.
Thank you. We got 2 minutes left. We're going to cut us off here. Emmanuel, you're next.
Okay, thanks a lot, Wendy. I wanted to know how did the MBS program and networking program start at KGI prepare you for to adapt successfully in a multicultural environment, especially while working with people from Japan, Switzerland, like you noted? How did those programs at KGI prepare to succeed in those environment?
Yeah, I think KGI is a very diverse, has a very diverse group, right? You work with students in different culture background, right? And you have different project teams. So working with cross-functional teams with different background, diversity, that helped me prepare for the force, right? The actual work area or space, because we work with different people in different culture and all that. So you have people with different background, different working styles, and you can see that in KGI as a mini real life reflection, right? And really try to use that experience and apply that to the workspace.
Great. Perfect. Does that answer your questions? So hopefully, Beatrice and Manuel. Good. Well, we are out of time, folks. I do appreciate your time, of course, Wendy, very much. It's been great. We've all learned a lot. And hopefully the students have learned a lot here as well. Yeah, thank you very much. We will see you next time around. And Wendy, I appreciate it. Maybe you'll come back again and visit us another session next year.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. Thank you, everyone.
You take care. Students, take care.
Okay, bye.